Influencer marketing is becoming increasingly popular in the B2B space. In fact, it's a growing industry. According to research that I came across, it's set to grow, the industry is set to grow to approximately $21.1 billion in 2023. Other interesting facts that I came across include the fact that about 63% of those surveyed plan to use AI in executing their influencer campaigns. Two-thirds of those brands will actually use AI for influencer identification. Nearly 60% of influencers felt that they faced discrimination in 2022, which is an interesting stat. Over 83% who were surveyed still believe that influencer marketing is an effective form of marketing. 71%, however, admit to having increased the amount of content they produce and share, and 67% of those say that they're going to increase their budget for influencer marketing over the course of this year. Now, while influencer marketing has traditionally been seen to be more of a B2C thing, it's of course becoming more of a B2B thing. However, it does have its own challenges. One of the main challenges, I believe, is the fact that those who are grappling with influencer marketing need to identify influencers. And in the B2B space, the definition is perhaps a bit broader than in the B2C space, where you're often looking at celebrities, social celebrities or social media personalities with large followings. In the B2B space, it could be industry experts, thought leaders, or even the satisfied customers. Another challenge is, of course, measuring the effectiveness of these campaigns. Given the longer and perhaps more complex sales cycles, it's harder to justify investment. And of course, you've got other challenges like ensuring compliance with regulations, managing multiple stakeholders, ensuring the authenticity of your influencer partnerships, and most importantly, incorporating influencer marketing into the overall marketing strategy. So how do we navigate all these challenges and the potential that exists in this industry? Well, I'm hoping that our guest today, who has been in the space since he was 18, could help us out. Hello, and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast brought to you by Sproutwith.com. I'm an coach, and our guest today is Niklas Hartmann. Niklas, you're the head of influencer marketing at ReachOn, a company that's based in Frankfurt, Germany. And ReachOn is an influencer marketing agency that helps companies on the way to realizing successful influencer marketing campaigns. Now, I believe you handle everything from the research of appropriate influencers to the approach and to the overall analysis of these campaigns. What was interesting to me, of course, was the fact that you started it when you were 18 years old. You've been in the space for quite a while. It probably looks very different to when you first started off, but I am curious. What was this trigger or event that got you hooked into this whole idea of influencer marketing?
This is actually a funny story, because I got hooked when I met a former Germany's Next Top Model participant in university, and we were in the same influencer marketing course, and she was always checking her phone. And I was curious and asked her, hey, why do you always check your phone during the seminar? And she showed me her Instagram profile. And even then, it was like a couple of years ago, she showed me that she had 400,000 followers on Instagram. And I was always entrepreneurially focused. I thought there's a lot of business potential in this area. And this was like the starting point for me to help companies in the influencer marketing space and manage influencers as well. So to offer both types of services for companies and influencers alike.
Was the fact that she had a big following that made you go, oh, wow, there is a lot of potential in this? Or was there something else as well that led you down this path?
I think it was like a combination of her huge following, and the course was about influencer marketing, right, about opinion leadership 2.0, like a typical university course name. But yeah, the huge following she had and what you can achieve with this following, because influencers only show their effect or display what kind of sales leads and other business opportunities you can generate if they really influence people, if they provide value for their followers. And I thought if you plan a tactic or a strategy for achieving more sales in collaboration with influencers, you can achieve huge revenue increases. And this was the mindset I had during this time, and led me to this journey that has now been quite a while.
I'm curious, given your journey to date, what would you say would be your personal area of strength?
I would say it's like the influencer approach, the negotiation with influencers, because you need to have an in-depth knowledge of how to approach influencers, how to, forgot, how to approach influencers, how to help them, and how to negotiate as well. Because if you don't know what you should pay maximum, how to negotiate better prices, you will not have much success with influencer marketing, because price negotiation is absolutely crucial for achieving revenue increases. Because if you pay too much, and many influencers offer prices that are not really interesting for companies, you don't meet the necessary growth targets you want to hit.
Certainly. So there's a whole lot, I would imagine, in this ability to negotiate effectively. But what is one thing that you believe businesses should know but don't?
I think you should, in the first step, what I find what most people and most business don't know is that they have to really be strategic at influencer marketing. You can't just write 10 influencers and hope for the best that they offer you perfect prices. And in addition as well, what most companies don't know is that influencer marketing works for B2B. As you said in your beginning, in initial statement, you have some like influencers in the B2C area. Most companies that work with influencers target these type of customers. But if you talk about B2B influencer marketing, it's in its infancy. And I think really thinking about influencer marketing as a marketing opportunity for B2B is a complete new game. Obviously, if you read some articles in the past, you find some authors focusing on this niche. But in the end, really using influencer marketing campaigns continuously for B2B is a topic most decision makers do not consider. So in the first step, thinking about B2B campaigns with influencers, and then really creating a list of criteria for collaborations are the 2 points business people should consider and don't know right now, in my opinion.
So if they need to take a strategic approach, perhaps one of the first questions that we should clarify is influencer marketing right for all kinds of B2B businesses, or are there certain prerequisites that we need to look at?
I think you can definitely use B2B influencer marketing campaigns for every type of company. However, maybe one criteria is that you need, it's logical, influencers that are available on LinkedIn regarding your topic. So if you have a really small niche and you only target, your industry only comprises like maybe 1,000 people worldwide, it's not the right marketing method for you. But to consider whether influencer marketing is right for your company, I would do an initial research whether influencers are available on LinkedIn regarding the industry or the niche you work in. And if that's the case, you can definitely work with influencers, and you don't have to work with influencers with 100,000 of followers or millions of followers. An influencer can even be a person who has 5 or 10,000 followers. And if he creates content for suitable business people in your industry, these numbers are enough. It doesn't have to be like the mega influencer with millions of followers.
Even though we talk a lot about growing a business as I guess the ultimate aim of any tactic or strategy that we employ, that aside, would it also be fair to say that companies that invest in influencer marketing are trying to position themselves to be an influencer or an authority, if I could put it that way, in their space?
I would say even if you do influencer marketing for companies, for the company's goals, it is much more targeted towards person or personalities behind these companies. Of course, a company can amass a huge number of followers, can influence people. But if you analyze all of influencer profiles, you notice that many, I would say like 95%, the majority are people and not companies. So a company can become, I would say, an opinion leader in their field. You can also have a good engagement, but it's not like a personal relationship. If you consider sales, there's this obvious saying, people buy from people and not from companies. And so I would say influencer marketing works best for people behind companies, but a company can, of course, amass a huge following. However, it is not such a close connection to the person, to the client, to the follower, in comparison to a business influencer with a personal profile, at least in my opinion.
So let me see if I can ensure that I understand you correctly. You're saying that business is about people at the end of the day, whether it's B2C or B2B. And if in the B2B space, you can certainly use influencers to leverage your products or services, but it really makes sense to make a connection to not just the brand, but to people behind the scenes within the company in order to just build a human face and actually build relationships with your audience or customers. Would that be fair?
Correct. That's perfectly summarized. And another tip, what you should also consider is build these people you mentioned behind the company, that you should focus on building the authority, the influence for them. So basically, if you have like the key management personnel, that they build profile and become business influencers in their niche, you shouldn't just focus on hiring influencers. You should also focus on creating or building in-house influencers that work for your company. Because if you have 10 people in your company that have 10,000 followers, you have an audience of 100,000 followers you can reach. And of course, you can use the personality of the influencer to promote your white paper, your webinar, your services. But you should always keep the persons behind the company in mind.
And that's an interesting take, because most of what we read on the internet, at least, would seem to say that we need to focus on other people, bringing other people into our marketing campaigns to leverage our brands, etc. But you're also speaking to what some would call thought leadership and developing thought leadership within the company in order to get to a place where they could be influencers in the industry space as a whole. That's an interesting strategy that you're talking about there. Would you say that really for a company to make the most of influencer marketing, they should already begin this whole exercise of looking within their own company and identifying potential influencers and investing into their growth and development?
I would definitely say that. And there's a LinkedIn post that went viral in our country, where a business owner paid employees 50 euros per LinkedIn post. So basically, they could get a maximum of 200 euros, and everyone would get a payment if they wrote and published 4 LinkedIn posts. And with, I think, like maybe 50 LinkedIn posts, they generated a reach of 200,000. So I would definitely say maybe monetary compensation is not the right way. You could argue about that, but you should definitely invest in your people, because they're the most important resource, and help them maybe do a workshop regarding LinkedIn and business influencer marketing opportunities. But I would for sure definitely recommend it.
Okay, certainly. If that is the case, how would you recommend we approach this idea of identifying and building up influencers? Now, you've suggested that we look at perhaps investing and getting people to do a course or something of that nature, but are there perhaps things that could be done on a day-to-day basis, or at least a monthly basis, in order to ensure that takeaways from these courses are actually being implemented? Because I think that's one of the hardest things that people struggle with, is to actually implement some of the takeaways from these seminars and webinars, etc., and make it a bit of a practical exercise for yourself.
I completely understand what you mean. We all notice this. If you work for some companies, they pay an incredible amount of money for a strategy and then it lies in a drawer and no one notices it anymore.
Yeah.
Regarding practical tips, we all work all day long, find information out that really touches our or hits our customers' pain points, and really using this knowledge we acquired during sales conversations, during fairs, and creating content that is suitable for clients is the first step. I would recommend just start, write some posts, learn what works and what doesn't. And it's not something you can basically teach. Like, you can teach someone to write, you can teach someone to publish, to create a beautiful photography, and these are some skills you need for LinkedIn. There are many studies that show posts with photos, with images work better, but in general I would say, hey, just start, create a plan that you write 2 to 3 posts per week and find out what works. Just have the tenacity, the perseverance to write 2 to 3 posts per week and find out what works, and then adapt your strategy. It doesn't have to be like a 4-month-long workshop where you learn every tactic. You just need to be accountable to yourself, to your company, start and keep the work up, and then you get the results you want.
Okay. I believe you talk about the 10 commandments of B2B influencer marketing. Could you walk us through that?
Sure. So the first one is define your target group. It's like marketing 101, because what most people fail at regarding influencer marketing for B2B is that they just write a post, but it doesn't matter to their audience at all. So you first have to carefully think, who do I want to target on LinkedIn, and which goal would I like to achieve? Is it generating leads? Is it building brand authority or opinion leadership in my industry? Do I want to, for an HR person who wants to build a LinkedIn profile, do we want to generate a specific amount of applications each month? These are the first questions you have to ask yourself to create a profile that attracts people towards following you. And the second step is, as I already said, be accountable and show up every single week. It's influencer marketing is not like a marketing method that you can just do once and then magically leads arrive and everything becomes better. It's something you have to do every single week. Even for people who don't have much time, I would recommend just keep 1 hour free per week where you write the post and do it over 52 weeks. And then you realize and then you see the improvements you made. So being tenacious and really keeping it up, building a habit of writing posts is crucial. And the third one would be collaborate with other influencers. You experience much quicker growth if you use the opportunity to work with other influencers. Approach them, write them, meet them at fairs, call them. Just use the opportunity to find people in the same, at the same level as you are, and propose them to work with you to create joint posts or do a LinkedIn live video together, just so you can grow much quicker this way. And the fourth one would be do not just work with LinkedIn influencers, but think more long-term, work with podcast hosts such as yourself, work with media organizations in your industry, work with people who have huge audience due to their newsletter. Just use all growth opportunities you can discover, you realize, and use them to build this opinion leadership you want. So not just focus on LinkedIn, use other partners from other platforms and forward them to your LinkedIn profile or your services. And the next one I would say is use your LinkedIn profile to generate speaking opportunities. So let's say you just started, you have 1,000 LinkedIn followers. Use your LinkedIn profile as a negotiation tool for achieving your, whether it's job application or leads. For instance, you could propose to an event organizer, hey, I promote your event and speak at your event for free. I promote it on my LinkedIn profile. I promote it on my newsletter. And in return, you promote our white paper, our lead generation file, or whatever it is. So you get what you want. So really viewing your LinkedIn profile not just as an opportunity to build opinion leadership, but also as a negotiation tool is really crucial. Because if you use it as a negotiation tool, you can exchange it for leads, for job opportunities, for applications, for speaking opportunities. Only you define the limits. And the sixth or seventh one, I'm not quite certain which one where we are, would be to really use your LinkedIn followership not just as an opportunity to influence people, but also as a research tool. So you can create surveys, you can find out your customers' pain points. So basically, it's so easy for you to, let's say you consider for your sales process, how can I convince the maximum number of people to hire me for a specific service or regarding the purchase of a product? You can find out, hey, what is really the problem of these people? Maybe you have some ideas, like you have 5 different ideas and you can test them. You can ask your followers, hey, I just want to improve our services. I want to find out which one of these problems is the biggest pain point for you. List the 5, 6 options you think are really issues for your prospective clients and find out, hey, this is the main problem. And then you can also use this research to adapt your webinar, your white papers, your sales process to these pain points. And then it's much easier to gain clients, to persuade clients to hire you. And other opportunities are also thinking about other platforms besides LinkedIn. LinkedIn is obviously the business platform to be, but it depends on your industry, of course, but even Instagram or YouTube could be attractive channels. So if you have the right industry, you could also consider focusing on these platforms to achieve your business goals or objectives. And yeah, I think before I continue with the other 3 points, I let you speak so it doesn't become too tedious for the listeners.
No worries. I'm interested in the fact that you mentioned early on in the process that we should invest in developing content. Now, the challenge for most people, though, would be to produce content, but content that resonates with your audience. Now, you have suggested that it takes time and that we will improve over time. But is there a way to be more conscious of the type of content that we're producing to ensure that it actually resonates with people? Are there perhaps templates or formulas? I'm sure AI produces a lot of insights these days, so it can help to a degree. But at the end of the day, I would think, in my opinion, it needs to sound as though it's coming from you, number one. Number two, it needs to be insightful or informative enough to make people to want to read it and then, of course, engage with you or the content that's being shared. Are there any tips that you would recommend for those of us who struggle with that type of thinking?
It is an interesting question. I first have to compliment you because I had the same problem initially, because I will elucidate a little bit because I think it's quite helpful in the situation. When I started, I didn't even consider becoming a LinkedIn influencer or something like that. I just posted some posts and they worked. And I didn't really think about it. They just worked. And then when I consciously decided, hey, I want to increase my reach, then they didn't work at all. So it was a little bit of a problem. I feel like if you consciously do it, you have the problem that the content becomes a little bit too artificial. So obviously what works is achievement. So if you have been published in a magazine, if you shared your insights in a podcast, if you were invited to a conference as a speaker, this works perfectly. You can thank some people in the post, the organizers of the event, you have some likes, quite certain. So obviously, I would recommend tagging people, asking people for their insights in your post is really crucial to generating the kind of reach that you want. And then I would recommend testing different types of posts. So if you want to do it consciously, test a short post. That is shorter than 60 words. Test a long post with the maximum number. Test posts with pictures. Test videos. There's not like a solution for that it applies to every company. It depends so much on your audience, but testing is crucial because then you can realize what works for your audience. However, there's some tips that apply for most companies, and one of them is do not solely share text, but also focus on including a photo or video. This works much better. When people see a photo of yourself, they don't just see the insides, they also can connect it to a particular face. That is helpful for the opinion leadership we discussed. And what I would also recommend is what I've done and what really worked is to test content ideas with social media ads. That sounds at first a little bit paradox, because why should you spend money to find out what works? But we did it for my LinkedIn profile. We looked up, hey, what is the pain point of our prospective clients? And most clients clicked on the ad regarding the influencer research process. So I created content regarding how to find influencers, and I reached 5 times more people on LinkedIn than I have followers. So really spending, it doesn't have to be much money, like spending like 50 euros, dollars, whatever currency you want to use, and finding out, hey, this is a pain point, or you don't have to pay money. You can also ask your clients, what are your main issues? It can really help to adapt the content so it fits your audience. And then you notice, hey, this post works particularly well. And then you can elucidate on this topic. If, for instance, the topic finding influencers works well, you can do a second post where you just list 7 tactics of finding influencers. You can show one tactic in depth how to find influencers. So that there are numerous ways to use this topic that works particularly well to create multiple content posts on this issue. And then you can also recycle content. For instance, only due to the algorithm, only some of your followers see your content. If some time has passed, let's say 2 or 3 months, you can write it in a slightly different way, but with similar information to reuse some of the work you did in the past. So these are options to adapt your content so it really resonates with your audience.
Right. You suggested earlier on that we write content. You did it more organically or naturally in order to find that it worked, as opposed to doing it very intentionally. I would assume that would work well for some people who just have a knack or a natural tendency to put out that kind of content. For the rest of us, though, it may pose to be more of a challenge. For those of us, correct me if I heard you incorrectly, but engaging with other people and the content they're posting could well serve as a foundation for our own content. In the comments that we make and things of that nature, we could essentially use that basic ideas and elaborate on it in order to reach hopefully a similar sized audience, or at least start that way. Would that be a fair comment?
This is correct. And it's really an important point here you emphasize, because sharing insights, commenting on other people's posts is really an incredible way of gaining followers as well. Because let's say you comment on a mega influencer's post, thousands of people see them. And if your comment is really insightful, you can basically use the influencer's reach to shift attention to yourself. And what I would also recommend, if you're, as you said, not so naturally inclined to write posts, is just typing. Let's say you work in the chemical industry, type in some chemical information, and then you can find influencers in the space and what they posted in the past. And then you have many content options. You can check, hey, this post worked particularly well for this influencer, so let's focus on this issue first, and use the other influences successes to gain insights and what your audience cares about is an effective tool to find ideas for your posts.
And of course, that would help with the whole idea of tagging people as well, because you've got an audience that we can already tap into and hopefully increase our audience as well. Now, that sounds terrific. Let's go back to the remaining 2 or 3 points that you have under your 10 commandments, and then we can go from there.
Okay. So the last 2 or 3 points I would say is the next one is for sure that you should focus on reaching the right people, because what I notice most often is people have a general idea of who they want to target, and it goes a little bit beyond the first commandment of defining your target group, because your target group can be very broad group of people. As you said in the beginning, it could be stakeholders, it could be in other investors in your company, it could be clients. So really focusing on one single group that is interested in your content, that you want to really help with your content, is crucial. And therefore you should do a cleanup basically of the people you connected with on LinkedIn or other platforms. So basically, we all know it. If you spend some time at a place, cleaning is necessary. The same as applies for your social media profile. So really looking through your connections, looking through your followers and analyzing, hey, is this someone who's active on my profile? Are there some people who I've been in contact with them in the past but lost contact? Is a good way to I would say to regain a connection that might be useful, and helping them with their problems and also gaining new people that constantly connect with your social media post and profile. If you lost contact in the past, but you spend some effort on gaining the trust and the help of this person, you have someone who constantly comments on your post, who helps you. And I think really looking through your past contacts is crucial to growing quickly, because as you said, the initial problem is that you don't have a huge audience. So a good tool can also be, or a good tactic can also be, to look through your past connections and see where some growth opportunities exist. And the next one would also be to create videos. Why? Videos allow you to distinguish yourself, because many people have hangups regarding creating videos where they're personally seen. Even on LinkedIn, not many people do it. Many people put a picture online. This is not a problem. But however, if it's video content, some are a little bit more, I would say reserved, basically. Really publishing video content will allow you to distinguish yourself, will allow you, if you share some great insights, allow you to gain followers quickly. So this is another tip. And what I would also recommend is using tools or methods like webinars or white papers to convert your follower base to your newsletter. Because we talked about the algorithm a little bit, and you only reach some of your follower base. So basically, we noticed it on Instagram and other platforms as well. There are continuous changes regarding the algorithm. So really converting these followers as quickly as possible to your newsletter, to your client base is absolutely crucial, because you can't guarantee that they will see your post in 4 months or even a year. So really getting them to sign up for your newsletter is a critical step to be in constant contact with them.
As we talk about using influencers, is it the right mindset to think about a campaign in particular? And perhaps a campaign is appropriate in the short term to test the waters, so to speak. But longer term, should we have this mindset of finding the right people who we can almost embed within our company or our business on an ongoing basis in order to achieve mutual wins, as opposed to just looking at it from the perspective of how do we increase revenue growth for my business?
I think you're completely on the right track regarding building long-term collaborations, because you mentioned in the beginning authenticity is crucial, and I agree, because authenticity is the name of the game. Authenticity is the currency for influencers. So really building these long-term relationships permit the influencer to show followers, hey, this is something or a company I'm really convinced of. I'm really certain that they deliver a great service or a great product. It will be much easier, even for revenue purposes, to convert them so they become your clients or applicants for a job offering. So really starting in a collaboration, analyzing how successful it was, and then converting it to a long-term collaboration is a sensible step for really achieving every single objective you have, whether it's opinion leadership, revenue growth. You shouldn't view it that you just achieve one of these goals. It's the more you do, the more you achieve, the more you build your authenticity, your opinion leadership, the more people trust you, the more clients want to hire you. It's all interconnected. It's not like separate from each other.
So would you say, and I'd be curious to hear from your experience, would you say that purpose-driven brands, those who are very focused on a mission, certainly revenue growth is important, but on a mission to help a particular segment of a population, tend to fare better than those who kind of approach this with the whole idea of let's try and get some wins, but ultimately it's all about revenue?
I would say so, because it's the same like during a date. People want to be wined and dined. It's not just, I think people subconsciously notice whether you're just in for the revenue, or if it's really something you're completely convinced about, you're enthusiastic about, you want to help them, you have a mission, it's a passion of yours, and not just to make a living. I would say, if we notice, when I look back at past campaigns, you could definitely say that purpose-driven brands, and especially people passionate about the business, about helping other people perform better, because people don't feel sold to. They feel like, hey, a person really tries to help me, and this is completely different starting point than if you just say, hey, I want to make money. Maybe you don't formulate it in this way or phrase it in this way, but people notice subconsciously.
Absolutely. So perhaps something we haven't quite touched upon as yet is the fact that having the right culture within the organization is important. And a good way of ensuring that you have the right culture would be interviewing your customers and potential influence and hearing of their experiences with your brand. Because if you've got the culture piece right, then you should be hearing elements of that in their answers. And that's where things like case studies and things could be extremely helpful, I would imagine.
Correct. Yeah. Case studies, white papers with a practical focus, webinars where you interview one of your clients as well can be incredible opportunities. You help clients to achieve more visibility. You can show your practical experience, your expertise. It's definitely helpful, and you learn a lot along the way, which you can use further then on for your LinkedIn post or whatever content you want to create.
Something. Now, with all of these campaigns, it all sounds lovely, but I'm sure there's some very analytical people who are listening to this going, all of this is nice, but it needs to make sense economically and otherwise in order to ensure that the numbers are moving in the right direction. How do we justify the expense of getting influencers on board when in the B2B space, the sales cycles are a lot longer? We can't necessarily attribute sales directly to a specific campaign. What should we be measuring, and how should we be approaching this whole idea of getting buy-in from everyone else within the company?
So this is a crucial point, because, as you said, influencer marketing is not solely a creative affair. It's also analytical, because you have to analyze the statistics, the numbers at the end, and you have to adapt your campaign according to the numbers. So one easy step to what many people do not consider but is exceptionally worthwhile is to create a collaboration besides money or monetary compensation. For instance, what we did with a business influencer. We had a company that wanted to promote their podcast, wanted more listeners for their podcast. And we researched influencers, business influencers on LinkedIn that could potentially appear in this podcast. So I could have offered them like 500 or 1,000 euros. But what I did instead was I offered them the following deal. They could appear in the podcast, share their insights to the existing listenership, and in return, the influencer would promote the podcast to his or her followers. And this was a really amazing opportunity for both sides. Afterwards, I think we doubled the number of listeners for the podcast. The influencer could promote their expertise and services to the listeners, and both sides profited without paying a single dime. And so reach versus reach collaborations decision makers should definitely keep them in mind. Besides, everyone thinks, hey, we have to pay a huge amount of money when doing influencer campaigns. But as I said in the beginning, B2B influencer marketing is still in its infancy. So you find, as in the beginning in the B2C space, many people willing to work if they get some kind of benefits. So you can offer your reach, you can offer your newsletter, you can offer your podcast, you can offer free products if you have an interesting product that might arouse the interest of the influencer. So all these opportunities exist besides paying influencers money. And if you pay influencers money, you're obviously correct that the sales cycles in the B2B space are longer. So I would focus on promoting registrations for webinar, for white paper. So you can really, really determine whether you had some benefit due to this campaign or it didn't work at all. And so you can analyze afterwards, hey, this campaign worked well, this didn't. And then you can see, how much did I pay per lead? Let's say I paid the influencer 1,000 euros or dollars. And then I got 50 leads. Then I paid 20 euros dollars per lead. And then I can analyze in comparison to other marketing methods I use, whether it's beneficial, whether it's worthwhile, how much I can pay per influencer. Let's say I pay on other channels 15 euros per leads, because many people are interested in my product, so I don't have such a huge cost per lead. Then I can analyze, hey, on average, influencers generate 10 leads per 1,000 reached people. I can pay a maximum amount of this for this collaboration. Let's say you get on average 5 leads and you pay for other marketing methods 15 euros, then you can pay a maximum of 75 euros per 1,000 reached people. If the influencer reaches 10,000 people, you can pay him $750 or euros. So this is a particularly easy way to find out what works. You can start with this cost-effective or campaigns for no cost to find out how effective influencer marketing is for you. And then you can analyze, hey, this is how much I can spend on B2B influencer marketing campaigns to really get going, to really achieve the company growth I want.
So if I could put that another way, you should really be looking at top of funnel and middle of funnel metrics that already exist within your marketing strategy, and looking to increase the pipeline velocity of leads going into the funnel, and using your traditional metrics to ensure that your influencer marketing initiatives are paying off.
Correct.
Okay, makes a lot of sense there. I'm also curious, with these campaigns, we talked about content, we talked about ensuring the authenticity of these partnerships and acquiring some of these companies or individuals to help out. Is there an element of reciprocity that needs to be negotiated as we try to finalize deals with potential influencers, or is it very much a contract with my company that needs to be finalized, and then if the influencer is interested in doing something else on their behalf, there's a separate contract, or how does it work? How do we negotiate effectively?
Let me rephrase it if I understood it correctly. You asked whether contracts with influencers are necessary to realize these campaigns, or if it's sufficient to just create a reciprocal, mutually beneficial deal, basically, and you don't need to do any kind of legal work to achieve your aims. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And that may be the limited perspective from an outsider, but is it a different reality in the influencer marketing space? And perhaps you could share your insights if it is.
Well, in the first step, I would say it depends on the territory. In Europe, and I would say it's only if it's a campaign with a massive reach, then you would negotiate a contract and do the legal work necessary, because obviously a lot of money is involved. But otherwise, if it's like a smaller campaign, or like a campaign with only a couple of €1,000, then you wouldn't do in general a contract for a B2B campaign. The only exception is if there's a transfer of rights, for example, for content created by the influencer. So the company can use it on their website for other marketing campaigns. Then you would draft a contract and do the work necessary to find a compromise for both sides. Otherwise, you wouldn't do a contract. At least we do it this way. Other agencies might do it another way, but this is basically what I heard from other agencies as well. And regarding territory, it's a little bit different in the US, because there's a much higher liability that you get sued by competitors, by influencers. So I would definitely recommend for Australian companies intending to work with in the US American market to do a contract. I wouldn't work with any influencer in the US without a contract. A contract is absolutely necessary, and you shouldn't do any influencer collaboration without one. But in Europe and in Australia, I think as well, it's in most cases it is sufficient to agree upon terms via email, or if you had a phone call with the decision maker to summarize the agreed points via email, and then you have it in a written way. If there's some problems later on, you can show it, you can prove it that it's the agreed upon terms. So I think this would be enough. So basically, having it in a written form should be enough in general.
Is there anything else we need to be aware of, legal issues aside, in order to minimize the risk of influencer marketing, especially given what social media is today?
I would say you should meticulously research influencers, because if you heard about some influencers and some campaigns, you notice that some scandals come up over the span of the years. And so really being meticulous regarding your research is crucial, because you have to really be sure this is a person that do not only just promotes your product, but it also stands for your company values, gives a face to your services. So be sure there's really the right person to work with. And in the second, and this is I think even more crucial, is having high standards. Companies shouldn't just work with any type of influencers. They should have the highest standards, the highest criteria. There are many types of influencers. You do not work with the first one you come across. You should have a distinct research process. You should really focus on having the highest criteria, basically a minimum of 3 or 4% engagement level. The influencer should not work with a competitor in my field. He should not demand more money than amount X. So really focus on who is the perfect influencer for your company, and then researching the persons. And I would recommend, based on the criteria for the perfect influencer, writing to many influencers, at least 70 to 80, because then you are free. You have the freedom to negotiate successfully. Because if you have only 5 influencer positive replies of 5 influencers, you don't have really much room to negotiate. But if you have 20 or 25 who want to work with you, you can you can be strict in the negotiation. You can tell companies, you can tell influencers, as a company, we do not pay more than amount X. And then you can work with the influencers who fulfill all your criteria. So really keep having the highest standards, writing to many influencers, and then choosing the most successful ones is the most important thing you can do.
Makes a lot of sense. Niklas, I'm also curious, do you find that there are at least a couple of aspects around influencer marketing, especially in the B2B space, that doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
I think what many people don't talk about much is like the next step for B2B influencer marketing, to really develop a process of not only just achieving followers and reach, but really generating the leads, generating the funnel. So it's really becomes a process to help you increase revenue or opinion leadership or whatever you want, finding out what works, testing different kinds of marketing methods in combination with influencer marketing, basically. So not just using a LinkedIn influencer to link to your LinkedIn page, using your LinkedIn influencer to promote your webinar, to promote your white paper, to promote your newsletter, and then finding out which of these marketing methods already existing in your company works best. It's not talked about much. Everyone says, hey, we generated leads. We had so much success. We reached 100,000 people. But if you look behind the numbers, this is impressive anymore. So really focusing, who do I need to approach? Who do I need to target my content at? And doing the next step, not just reaching people, but really reaching people and achieving and getting the contact information from them is really crucial. So find out how you can create outstanding posts, but also how you can use these posts to move people along to the lead opportunities you already have available in your company.
Sound advice. Niklas, to wrap things up, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
I would say my top takeaway would be find out which influences work for your industry, which influences might help you to achieve your objectives, and then develop the criteria to find the top influences that move your company forward. And if you do these two steps, then you will have the success you need to achieve your business aims.
Brilliant. And Niklas, if people who are listening in are curious, want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend they head to?
I would recommend they head to LinkedIn, just type in Niklas Hartmann, and then you find my profile. And otherwise, they can also go to our website, ReachOn.com. We offer a white paper regarding influencer marketing, so everyone interested in learning more can download it and inform themselves about the opportunities available.
We'll include links to that in the show notes. Niklas, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me and also for your interesting questions. It was really a pleasure to hear influencer marketing from your perspective.